We're Ariel.
And Michelle, and
And
we're the Board Game Tutors.
Today we're going to be doing Advanced Concepts for the Wizard's Tower, the expansion for Castle Panic. Let's go ahead and get started.
All right. So today we're going to go over probably the most exciting part of the Wizard Tower expansion, which is the wizard cards. So these are all the special things that you can do now because you have a wizard fighting for you. So the time when you're able to get a wizard card is over here in the order of play, step 2, where it says discard and draw one card, optional. So as in the previous version of the game, you can discard one of your castle cards and get a card here from the castle deck, the one that says Castle Panic on it. But your other choice is to take a card from the wizard deck, which is going to have all of these lovely wizard cards. So that is when you have the opportunity to get a wizard card. So wizard cards work on all the different monsters. We have a few examples out on the board, but they pretty much work on everything with a couple exceptions. So first, basically both exceptions have to do with mega bosses, which we went over in a previous video. So if you need more information on mega bosses, you can look at that video. But the basilisk is going to interfere with you because they're step 2 in the order of play. He doesn't allow you to do step 2. So while the basilisk is on the board, you can use any wizard cards that you already have. But when you get to step 2, you don't have the option of discarding and drawing a card, which means you don't have the option of discarding and drawing a wizard card.
So basically, step 2 is effectively negated as long as the basilisk is in play. And then the other exception
is the warlock. So the warlock, I guess he's like equally powerful to the wizard or something. So he's not affected by anything the wizard can do. So you have to use everything else that you have against the warlock if he's the mega boss that comes out on the board. But yeah, you can't use wizard cards against him.
Basically, he's too highfalutin for you to attack him with wizard powers.
Yeah.
He can defend against those, but regular old swordsmen and knights, he can't stop those because they have swords.
Yeah, apparently he doesn't have magic against that.
Yeah, and obviously archers too, and he can't stop the barbarian either. So yeah, that's that. And the last little tidbit that we just want to go over.
So here you can see these symbols. They also appear on castle deck cards. On the left is the castle symbol. It looks like a tower. And on the right is the forest symbol. It looks like a tree. So these appear on some of the cards, and when they do, it means you can use the card on a monster that's in that region. So if you see that castle symbol, which is a tower, that means you can use this card against a monster in the castle. And if you see that forest symbol, you can use this card against a monster in the forest. So in the case of that example right there, blue fireball, you can use it in the castle. You also can use it in the forest.
So let's go ahead and get started on all the cards.
Okay.
It's a rather large deck.
Okay, so first we have Eye of the Oracle. And there's one copy of each of these types of cards in this deck. So this says, draw the top 5 cards from the castle deck, keep 1, and return the rest to the top of the deck in any order. So basically this card allows you to stack the deck a little bit. So you would take the 5 cards and then you'd get to look at them. So we're counting 5 right now. Make sure to only look at the top 5.
So you take those, you flip them, and then you see, okay, I got a red hero, I got a red knight, got a red archer, got mortar, got drive him back. Okay, I'm going to drive him back, so I will take that and put that in my hand. And then now I can rearrange this in any order I want. So let's say it's Michelle's turn next, so I will give her the red hero. And I'll put that on the top. So you can rearrange that however you like and put it back on top.
And it's called Eye of the Oracle because you're basically looking into the future to see which cards are coming up. Okay, so that's that one. Then we have Thalgar's Blessing. So with some of these cards, they'll say like some guy's name and then an apostrophe S and then another word after it.
We don't actually know the wizard's name.
Yeah, so our theory, because there seem to be different names for wizards in here, but we keep seeing the same picture of a wizard. Our theory is that he learned tricks from various wizards who taught him. And he's like, oh, Thalgar's Blessing. Yes, Thalgar taught me how to do this, etc. So that's our thematic theory there. So Thalgar's Blessing says all players draw up from the castle deck to a full hand. So if you play this card, your friends that you're playing with will also get to draw up to a full hand, and you will too.
And so one specific thing that you want to know about the wizard cards are if you play these wizard cards, you play them at the same time as you would any other regular castle deck card. So over here, all of this happens in step 4.
Right.
So there's not a special order that you have to do things in. You could play wizard cards first, then castle cards, and then another wizard card. It's up to you completely. So
Right.
The one thing that you need to know for Thalgar's Blessing specifically is the fact that all players draw up from the castle deck to a full hand. So depending on how many players you have, that's the hand size limit. And so players draw up only from the castle deck because it says that.
Mm-hmm.
And so this happens, like I said, during step 4. So this means you cannot trade cards with other players if they got something good, because step 3 happened already.
Right.
So you need to keep that clear. Thalgar's Blessing only happens in step 4. Trade cards happens before that.
Mm-hmm.
And so obviously you can keep wizard cards in your hand just like you can keep castle cards in your hand too.
Right.
Okay, that's that.
Then we have Arcane Assembly. All players may immediately build walls at the cost of 1 brick or 1 mortar per wall. So this is another one that's going to benefit your fellow players at the same time as you. Anyone who has a brick or a mortar card can play it when you play Arcane Assembly, and they can make a wall. So normally you need a brick and a mortar, but in this case it's easier to build a wall.
Mm-hmm. So all the walls that you've lost to different monsters, you can put up potentially all 6 if you really wanted to, and you had the means of doing so. Had enough players, had enough mortar and brick cards. So there's no limit. It's basically however many of those cards you have.
Right.
So, and this applies to everyone. So not just you, not just the second player. It's everybody who's playing.
Right. So that was Arcane Assembly. Then we have Mystical Manufacturing, which is similar. It says play this card with 1 brick or 1 mortar card to rebuild 1 destroyed tower. So typically once a tower is destroyed, you can't rebuild it. It's only walls that you can rebuild normally. But in this case, when you play Mystical Manufacturing, you, the person who played it only, can use a brick card or a mortar card and rebuild a tower. And as you might be wondering, yes, you can use it on the wizard tower itself. Now, that would only happen if you already had Mystical Manufacturing in your hand when the wizard tower was destroyed, because when the wizard tower is destroyed, you're no longer able to draw new wizard cards. So that's an important point to keep in mind. But if you already had Mystical Manufacturing in your hand, then you would be able to play it if you had also a brick or a mortar card, and then you could bring back that wizard tower or any other tower that you want to bring back.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So that is that. A pretty awesome way to recoup the wizard tower if you lost it in a sneak attack from the monsters.
Mm-hmm. Then we have Green Fireball. As you can see, this one can be used in the castle, and it can also be used in the forest. It says damage 1 monster in any ring of the green arc for 1 point and catch that monster on fire. So there's a slight error in the way this card is written, because as the rulebook explains, green is just referred to as a color, not as an arc. So arc normally means a specific number, like number 5.
Or number 4.
Mm-hmm. And as you can see, as we've gone over before, green encompasses the number 4 arc and the number 3 arc. So the wording here is a little confusing, but they basically mean anywhere in the green region. So both the number 3 arc and the number 4 arc.
And you can remember that because it says green in the text, and it also has a green jewel in it. So
Right.
that reminds you. So if
Right.
this was used...
So you can just do damage to 1 monster that's anywhere in the green area.
Mm-hmm. So this works in the forest, works in the castle. So this orc would get damaged for 1 point.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what the text says. And
it's a fireball, so he's caught on fire.
so we just put it on their face because they're not terribly good looking anyway. But we like to put it like that. If you really want to, you can put it on the side of the monster, but it gets a little picky. Like you try to move them around. It doesn't move around very well if you attach them to the monster.
Right.
So that's an example of green fireball.
Okay. And then we have 2 others that are very similar. Red Fireball works the same way, but it's specifically in the red region, which would be the number 1 and number 2 arcs.
Mm-hmm. So that's pretty simple.
That's that. And then the Blue Fireball, same thing. It just refers to the blue region. So that's the number 5 and number 6 arcs.
So obviously the benefit of these 3 fireball cards is the fact that You might want to use this, for example, on a really heavy hitter, like this ogre, for example, to bring him down to 3 and set him on fire and cover up his ugly face. And then now, whenever he moves forward, after he moves, he will go down by 1 more hit point. So that is one effective way of taking out a heavy hitter monster.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, so those were all the fireball cards. Then we have Extinguishing Wind. Remove all flame tokens from all walls, towers, and monsters, and move all monsters back 1 space. So this is a very thematic card. You can imagine a wind going through and putting out the fire everywhere, and at the same time pushing the monsters back 1 space because it's a strong wind. So this one can benefit you and sort of not benefit you so much at the same time, because if you have monsters that are on fire, you might like them to stay on fire so they can keep getting damaged every time that they move. So this will put out those fires, but it will also save buildings that you have that might be about to burn down.
Right. So for example, in this example, let's go over step by step what this card would cause. Okay, so go ahead, Michelle. How would we enforce this?
Okay, so we take the flame off of the wall because the wind put that fire out, but it also puts a fire out on these 2 monsters. So that is the Goblin Cavalry, and then farther away is the Orc. So neither of them is on fire any longer. But it also helps you in regards to the monsters because it moves them all back 1 space. So that guy, those guys, and that guy. So they're all farther from the castle now. So they aren't on fire, but you do have more time to eliminate them now before they reach the castle.
And so obviously, if you have a bunch of monsters in the same space, they all go back together as well. So in this case, all 3 would move back if they want to cooperate, and they don't. There we go. So that would be that. Okay.
So that's Extinguishing Wind. Then we have Rain of Ice. This one can be used in the castle and in the forest, as you can see from the symbols at the top. It says, no monsters move this turn. Remove all flame tokens from all monsters. So this is another very thematic card. Basically, the monsters are getting frozen in place from ice, so that's why they don't move this turn. And the ice puts out any fire that's on the monsters.
Right. Okay. That's that.
Then we have Wall of Force, which can be used in the castle, as well as the normal archer, knight, and swordsman rings.
But not the forest, as you can see.
Because we only see a castle symbol up there. And this one says, move all monsters in 1 arc back to the forest. So as we've reminded you guys, an arc is a numbered area. So everyone in the number 5 arc, for example, would be affected by this card if that's the one you chose. So you move all those monsters from that arc back to the forest.
Cards are in the way, so I'll just put them here. And as you can see, this guy in 6, he doesn't move because he's not in the same arc.
Right.
So obviously you're getting really hounded in one particular number, which happens sometimes when playing this game. You can push them all back to give yourself a little bit more breathing room. But now everybody's in the forest, right, ready to charge at you once again.
Right.
Okay.
Then we have Teleport. This works in the castle and in the forest, as well as everywhere else. Move any monster in play to another space, or any Fortify token in play to another wall. So basically, like it sounds, teleport. You can transfer a monster, or you can transfer a Fortify token that's on one of your walls to a different wall.
So this guy's in the swordsman ring. You can move him pretty much anywhere. You could put him in the castle. That wouldn't be very smart. But let's say you just put him in the forest in 4, for example. So that would be one use of that. And this works for Fortify tokens as well. So I don't think we've ever used it for a Fortify token to move it from one wall to another wall.
Right.
But that is an option for you. And also, lastly, if you ever have, let's say on this wall right here, if you had 1 Fortify token on this wall, you couldn't use Teleport to put 2 Fortify tokens on that same wall, because that doesn't really make sense. So if you had that question in mind, that is not a possibility. So this card works especially well with another card we're going to talk about in just a second.
So this one is Hypnotize, and it works in the castle as well as everywhere else. 2 monsters in the same space, not the forest, attack each other simultaneously. So obviously this is a pretty funny idea that you could hypnotize the monsters and they would attack each other. And an especially fun way to use it is to pair it with Teleport.
So, for example, let's say you wanted to hurt this orc who's still at 4, and this guy, this orc over here,
The ogre's at 4.
Ogre at 4, sorry. This orc is about to enter the castle. You don't want him to do that, so you use teleport first, grab him, put him in the same space, 5 blue archer as this ogre, and now you're going to have them fight each other because that's just funny. So the way hypnotizing works, you want to explain that, Michelle?
Yeah, so basically they're going to attack each other, like we said, and they attack each other for the amount of life that each of them has. So that sounds a bit confusing, but the ogre, his life value is 4. And so he does 4 points of damage to the orc. Well, of course, the orc can't take that much, so he would be gone at that point. At the exact same moment, the orc does 2 points of damage to the ogre.
So he would die, and he would go down to 2. And so, obviously, this depends on what their actual life value is. If the orc only had 1 life, he's only going to do 1 damage. If the ogre had 2 life, that's only how much damage he would do. So it just depends on which corner is facing the towers.
Right. So if one of them has been hurt already, then they're not going to be able to do as much damage as they would if they were not hurt.
And obviously, you're going to have the most fun with this card when you can get a Mega Boss monster to attack another Mega Boss monster. That's just hilarious.
Oh, that would be epic.
Yeah. And so you get the Basilisk fighting the Dragon.
That would be so
trying
cool.
to kill each other. So, yeah. This card is very thematic, very fun, and just a lovely way to get rid of monsters on the board.
Okay. Then we have Burning Blast. Pretty simple. Set all monsters in the same space on fire, as you can see illustrated so wonderfully in this picture. So as we've said before, space refers to basically the smallest unit here. So it's a particular arc, a particular ring, and a particular color all at once.
So 5 blue knight, for example.
Yeah. So like these 2 guys would be or those 3 would all be in the same space.
And obviously, you don't want to do this when there's only 1 person in the space that you want to burn, because that's not an effective use of the card.
Right.
And also, this doesn't cause any damage. It only sets them on fire. So in this card, this instance would be fire, fire, fire.
Right. And then damage happens after they move while they're on fire.
So they move forward. That's when they get hurt.
Okay, so that's Burning Blast.
All right, let me get this out of the way 1 second. There we go. Hold on. That's not straight.
And then we have Ring of Fire, a bit similar to the previous one. Catch all monsters on fire in all colors of the Swordsman Ring. So the Swordsman Ring is the one closest to the castle, as we remember. So you would be able to catch on fire all monsters that were anywhere in the Swordsman Ring.
This is particularly useful when fighting imps, because sometimes, like when you get 1 imp per tower, imps will all be descending upon the tower and trying to attack them all at once. So if you want to, obviously, in this particular instance, let's just say these monsters were about to attack. All of them would get set on fire, so they all get flame tokens. No damage, just flame tokens.
Right.
And then so they'd move forward. So one really awesome use of Ring of Fire that we had, I think it was like 4 monsters all in the same space, and we used Ring of Fire on them. And the wall was gone. The tower was also gone. And so all 4 monsters moved forward, and they all had 1 life left at the same time. So after they moved forward into the castle, they just burned and turned into ash. So yeah, that was pretty fun.
Yes, and imps can be really obnoxious when they're all arriving together. So this one could be really helpful.
So, Ring of Fire. So if there are things in the way, that structure will be destroyed.
Right.
Because as we know, the way damage is assessed from flames, monsters move and then damage from flames happen. So in this instance, let me see here, there, and there. So if they were set on fire, he has 2 life, he has 1 life. Let's just say, because you get to choose which monster takes damage, he hits the wall is gone, he goes down to 1. And so they move forward, and when they move forward, then they die, pretty much, because of the movement. After movement, that's when flame damage takes place.
Right.
So that would be an example of how Ring of Fire works. But yeah, structures in their way won't stop them. Like, they still will damage the structure.
Right. Okay, so that was Ring of Fire.
The cards are turning on us.
Next is Hammer of Light.
Mm-hmm.
Slay one monster in the forest ring. So this one is very specific. It's just for the forest ring, and it's really simple. It just completely destroys any monster that's in the forest.
Mm-hmm.
This might be especially helpful if the dragon is one of the mega bosses that comes out. Sometimes he's waiting in the forest, and because the way that you move the dragon is to roll a die and then different things might happen, sometimes he just stays in the forest and breathes fire and doesn't go forward.
And breathes fire and breathes fire and breathes fire because he's lame.
Yeah, so this one can actually just destroy him while he stays in the forest if you have this card on hand.
He didn't expect that hammer, did he? But yeah, so it only works in the forest.
Mm-hmm. This is Rain of Iron, and it's allowed in the castle as well as the other regular rings. Damage all monsters in the same arc, not the forest, for 1 point. So arc means the numbers.
So 5 was an arc.
Mm-hmm. So this could be used on all of the monsters that are in the number 5 arc, and it would give 1 point of damage to all of them.
So if you're really getting hounded in one area, this does 1 definitive damage to everybody in that area.
Right. Okay.
That's that.
Then this one is called War Storm. Damage all monsters in the Archer, Knight, and Swordsman rings of 1 color for 1 point. So this one could be the number 5 and number 6 arcs because it's all the same color. That's all blue.
Except excluding the forest and excluding the castle.
Right. So the Archer, Knight, and Swordsman rings. Then you would just do 1 point of damage to every monster in this color.
Mm-hmm. And you can choose which color, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have to be blue, but blue would be the best for you in this particular situation.
Right.
Okay. That is War Storm.
Yeah, that was a War Storm of attacks.
Mm-hmm.
Here's another of those cards where it seems to refer to a specific wizard's name. It's called Validor's Wave. It can be used in the castle or in the forest, as well as all the normal places. Deliver 4 points of damage in 1 color. Distribute damage among as many monsters as you choose. So this one's pretty cool. It just gives you 4 points of damage to do as long as you stay within the same color. So like here, it could all be within the blue.
Mm-hmm. And forest and castle are eligible for here.
Right.
So it literally lets you spread the damage as much as you want.
Yeah,
so,
within that color.
As opposed to War Storm and Rain of Iron, each monster in the eligible area takes 1 hit and takes 1 point of damage. But Validor's Wave, you get to choose how to distribute 4 damage. Mm-hmm. So you can give it all to the same monster. If that guy was right here, you could kill him off for 4 points of damage. But obviously, you want to try to spread this out and kill as many monsters as you can all at once.
Right.
So this is limited by 4 points of damage. The other ones, every monster takes 1 hit.
Right.
That's Validor's Wave.
Okay. Wizard Quake. This works in the castle or the forest, as well as everywhere else. Destroy 1 tower and slay all monsters in the same arc as that tower. So this one's a pretty desperate move, especially if it involves destroying your wizard tower, which has happened to us. We actually had to do this to destroy the dragon once. So, yeah, it's pretty straightforward. You destroy 1 tower in order to kill the monsters that are in that arc. So here it would be arc number 5 if we're talking about that wizard tower. Mm-hmm. So basically you hurt yourself by destroying your tower, but you simultaneously destroy all the monsters that are in that arc. So these 2 guys would go away.
Mm-hmm. And so this works. It's funny. It says in the castle ring, but you have to destroy the tower in the arc. So it doesn't really apply to the castle ring because you have to have the tower in that arc.
Oh, yeah. So if someone has moved into the castle, they would have destroyed it.
That tower's gone. So it doesn't really mean tower because it would be a logical impossibility because, you can't use it to destroy another one.
I guess if you used mystical manufacturing right before, that might be the only time.
Right.
If you did that to erect the tower, even though there was already a monster inside, play mystical manufacturing along with a mortar or brick, then you could construct it. Then you'd be kind of desperate, I guess. But then you could play Wizard Quake to destroy that tower and destroy the monsters at the same time.
It's
rather specific.
I don't think that'll ever really happen. But yeah. So anyway, basically it just kills all the monsters in that area. So including forest, including castle, even though that doesn't make sense to me personally. But anyway, if anyone has the answer for that question, let us know, because that seems like it doesn't really make sense. So yeah, just let us know.
Okay, so that was Wizard Quake. Then we have Lightning Bolt. This can be used within the castle as well as the normal rings. Damage one monster for 1 point, and then move that monster to any arc in the forest. So basically this monster can be anywhere, and you send it back to the forest to any arc that you choose. So that means any numbered area.
So yeah, any 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6 forest area. Pretty straightforward.
Okay. This is Chain Lightning. It works in the castle and in the forest as well as everywhere else. Damage all monsters in the same space for 1 point. So as we've talked about, a space could be like right here. These two guys are in the same space. And then if you played this card on them, they would each get 1 damage. So the ogre would go down to 3. In this case, the orc would die because he only has 1 damage left.
And the last card.
Azrael's Fist. This is Ariel's favorite card, as you might guess. It's almost his name. And I think he just thinks it's cool as well.
Yeah, I just like to call it my fist.
So as you can see from the picture, you're basically somehow punching this monster from behind out of nowhere.
Not very gentlemanly, but very wizardly.
So you can do this in the castle or the forest if you would like. Damage 1 monster anywhere on the board for 1 point. So you just, out of nowhere, do them 1 point of damage when you have this card.
So yeah, those are all the wizard deck cards. This is what it looks like on the other side, in case you were curious.
Tells you wizard card.
And that's how you can tell the difference between castle deck. You can't really confuse these two. White border, black border, etc. One other thing that you just need to know, so we've already emphasized this in previous videos, but whenever cards say play with a hit card, that does not mean a wizard card.
Right, because they don't say hit in the name.
In the text.
Yeah, in the text, exactly.
So that is important. I emphasized that before, but just want to say that one more time. Wizard cards, usually you play them by themselves or with the appropriate cards, as alluded to on their text. So yeah, those were all the wizard cards in Castle Panic, the Wizard's Tower. Obviously, plenty of cards for you to fight off all the bad guys with. But yes, kind of hard to draw them, but overall, very helpful cards to your efforts.
They add a lot of exciting moments to the game where you can do some really cool things that often make a lot of sense thematically.
Bring the owl a little closer because he's kind of tilted.
We hope you enjoyed the content of this video. If you would like regular updates from us, feel free to subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Board Game Tutors. You can also find us on BoardGameGeek.com. Our username is The Board Game Tutors, one word. And yeah, we really appreciate any feedback, comments, questions, clarifications, and we really appreciate you guys watching.
All right. Thanks so much, everybody, for watching this video, and we look forward to seeing you next time.
All right. Thanks. Bye.
Bye, everybody.